Delighted to be here today to speak on behalf of farmers, and again compliments to Willie and WIT. When I was coming down in the car this morning, I was thinking to myself, what am I going to say, or what expertise, or why should I be here? Well, I says I'm on my way now, so I better say something. I was reading a book that the IFA published recently, and I would encourage everyone to buy a copy, about our 60 years of history. And it goes back, it's very interesting from a lot of different perspectives. But in 1955, whole milk powder and butter exports out of this country combined equalled £1 million. Our exports of rabbit meat that year was more than £1 million. At that time, 40% of the people employed in this country were in agriculture, and 40%, and indeed more in rural parts of the world of Ireland, left school by sixth class. So if we just fast forward to today, I think when we look at an industry that exports €10.5 billion worth of products, quality products all over the world, while we have less than 10% of the workforce employed in agriculture, but very, very important and our largest indigenous industry, and farm families, not alone in the context of agricultural education, but education generally, seeing how important it is, we've come a long way. And certainly on the basis of those facts, both our farmers and those who serve the farmers are massive innovators and massive adapters of technology. Whether we look at Harry Ferguson on the top link, our co-ops, the technical advancement of the people who spoke here today, whether it's Teagasc or otherwise, institutions like the Farmers Journal, the farmers setting up businesses such as FPD and IFA, indeed the political innovation that's been shown over the years in the context of the leadership shown on our accession to the EEC and other things that happen along the way. That being said, there's many of my members, and indeed, Gerard, you were right in your last speech, would say nothing has changed. In 1960, John F. Kennedy said at a national ploughing contest in South Dakota, the farmer is the only man in the economy who buys everything at retail, sells everything at wholesale, and pays the freight both ways. So I think you can understand the point that's been made there in the context of the advancements. I genuinely believe I've had an interest in ICT from an IFA perspective for many, many years, and people in this room would know, whether it's Kingwoods or otherwise, I see how it can help farmers, and certainly we ourselves in the communications business, that's what IFA does. We see it as very, very important, and I think that if we get ICT right, and we have to get it right, it must be to try and increase profitability at farming level. And when you look, and I'm not going to get into the detail of it, you know, farmers are small businesses. They have the same demands and needs as whether it's banking, taxation, but on top of the ordinary business, they have all these other issues of regulation, farm schemes, animal welfare, environmental issues, and such like. So what I want to concentrate my few minutes on is to focus on the issues that need to be addressed in order to ensure that the furore and the interest of ICT, that in 60 years' time, whoever's basically talking to our group of people in this room, that basically ICT has worked for farmers. And Frank, while in the context of data and being the largest data management, that's great. But ICT will only work if it drives profitability at farm level. And I think that has to be the key issue. The first most important thing that we in IFA believe needs to be addressed is the issue of rural broadband. Again, we have a telecoms business in IFA for some 10 years or a little bit more now. We actually invested in a wireless broadband company, and we have some knowledge of the lack of connectivity right across rural Ireland. And we're working very closely with the government and indeed with the Vodafones of this world and the Aircoms. And the government have made a number of attempts at delivering relevant and necessary broadband to rural Ireland. And in our opinion, the past efforts have failed. And I think this time they have to get it right. There is no reason, ladies and gentlemen, and I have some understanding of this, no reason why every home, maybe say 5 or 10,000 in Ireland, if the government gets it right, why every home in rural Ireland can't have access to fibre broadband in the next 4 or 5 years. I believe it's an investment of money, whatever it takes, that's worthwhile in the context that the benefits that will accrue to farm families and to rural Ireland and to agri-businesses going forward. So I think that is a key priority in the context of facilitating improved productivity, efficiency, communications, safety and all the other issues that was spoken about earlier on. I think the second thing that needs to happen in the whole context of ICT, and it's something that I as a communicator are challenged with, because I look back when I started in IFA 25 years ago, or you go back 40, 50 years ago, and how do we communicate with people? With difficulty, you would say. But on the other hand, farmers came to a meeting and they got a message. Farmers got a paper and they read what was in the article. Today, if you look compared to then and look at the challenge for us all as communicators, where we have access to farmers, he is texting, he is Twitter, he is Facebook, he is the farming press, he is local radio, national radio, and really, I think one of the big challenges for everybody in this room in the context of getting our message across on ICT or otherwise is to manage the overkill and the consequential switch off, and to try and ensure that we use the communication mediums that are massive and great that's available to us to get the right messages across to farmers in a timely fashion. I was in America recently and I met a very interesting guy who was speaking very highly, Edward, of Dairymaster, by the way. I don't know if you know him or not, John Hartner. He's from SVG Partners. He's an Irish guy who's involved in Silicon Valley after making a few pound, apparently, and selling a few companies and such like. And he was explaining to me about this concept of the Internet of Things. And I says, what's that? And he says it's the next $9 trillion business as he worked it out in his head, about how connectivity and how fibre broadband is going to bring technology onto farms. And there's a lot of research going on, not alone here obviously, but in America and elsewhere. And he's linked up with Forbes in the context of running summits to try and see how and what technology can basically deal with the issues that are confronting the farming community going forward. But on reflection of that, and certainly in my own experiences, I think we have to ensure that technology does not become gimmicky and that it does deliver what's on the tin is in the tin. And in that context, we need to have independent research, and we need to ensure that what is being promoted to farmers and sold to farmers, that there's a cost benefit and a real cost benefit. It has to be simple as well, ladies and gentlemen, because certainly the farming community seems to be running faster and faster and faster, and I think the person who can come up with ICT solutions that basically deliver real results that can be independently verified and that are simple is basically our two key factors. And that the savings that are delivered must, in my opinion, be returned to farmer by way of saving them money or saving them time. And I'll give you some examples of that. I see, for example, in the whole accountancy profession, great profession, but I see, if you go on and look at the taxation, the Ross system, and I met the new Director General of the Revenue Commissioners recently. I think he's a Kilkenny man and a very, very good guy and a very practical guy. But Ross, it's a very simple system. It has taken a huge amount of paperwork out of the system. ICT, computer technology, and the potential, if we're able to link the bank and link the co-op and link the whole lot up, the information to flow rather than basically paperwork flying all over the place. But ICT has meant a lot for the accountancy profession in the last number of years, but we haven't seen accountancy fees drop. And that has to be a key part of where we're going in the future. Technology, delivery, and helping agribusiness serve the farming community, there has to be a quid pro quo and passing on those savings to farmers. And I also see the opportunities there in the whole legal profession as well. One other area that I think we have to be conscious of, and has been mentioned once or twice today in the whole area of ICT, is safety, and Jim Bergen particularly highlighted that issue. But certainly in the consequence of somebody who's trying to push back more regulation, more cross-compliance issues and more pressures and fines on farmers, for the tragedy of a death or the tragedy of an accident on farm, I certainly think every ICT technology advancement has to be safety benchmarked. And I'm beginning to think in my own mind, is the mobile phone playing a part in distracting people for the job of work and the variety of work that they do on farms? And should we basically be advising our farmers that when you're out on your farm doing your business, that certainly do not let your mobile phone distract you, or in the context of whether it's a text message or whatever else. One other area that I think in the context of making sure that ICT delivers for for farmers and farm families going forward is the whole area of empowerment. And I think training and education has part of the evolution. And it's not an evolution, ladies and gentlemen. I think the speed of development that I've seen in technology in the last few years is a revolution. But I do genuinely believe that in the context of training and education and everybody playing a part in that is important. So in concluding my few remarks, farmers 60 years ago, I'm sure, couldn't foresee the advancement of how farming has happened in the last 60 years and the technology tools that's been adapted in order for that to happen. And certainly, I have no idea what farming is going to be like in the next 60 years. And anyone that has, please let us know, and we'll go down to Paddy Power and put a few bob on. But it will be different. Technology advancements that are there, here today, and the people in this room, no matter how bright we are, probably can't envisage the type of developments that will happen. And maybe whoever's speaking to whatever audience is here in 60 years will not have to drive home or back to the office. He might be able to say, beam me up, Scotty. Thanks very much.